If you are elected, where do you see the electrical grid going? Does it make sense to keep it under the auspices, the control of the city of Southport, or should this component get passed over to Brunswick Electric?
Well, that would require, more research than I've been privy to in that regard. But right now, the city's grid is solid. Brunswick Electric, we have the contract with them, and it's working out well right now. We get our energy from Duke Power. Part of the problem is the lines coming into our grid. That's where we lose lose our power at times. One of the things we need to look into is, Brunswick Electric also has lines there. Can we have a secondary line in case the line from Duke Energy goes down? Can we have a quick backup? And the other thing is we have to think about, but it's so financially prohibitive, is putting the lines underneath, putting them in the ground.
And
So
where
there are a
are
lot
you
of
on that?
things.
How much of a priority is that?
We have to prioritize, our things, and that's not at the top because it's so expensive. I think there are other things that need to be done with infrastructure, our waterfront, things like that, before we get to that project.
So then let's talk about how you would keep Southport on solid financial footing. Are there parts of the budget that you think where you think the current administration just spends too much? Are there areas to cut?
The budget is 45 pages, and I've been looking at it, but it's hard to absorb when you've not been part of that process until more recently. Let's say, well, first of all, we have to support our first responders, our fire, our rescue. They have to have the equipment that they need, and our city employees have to have good health coverage and things like that. But in terms of purchasing one vehicle versus another, if you can, it's not like we're a big town. We don't need big SUVs and things like that. Maybe we could get by with a $22,000 vehicle instead of a $44,000 vehicle. And if there are things that need to be purchased, let's make sure that we are getting the best deal possible. Are we doing the research? What is the age of the vehicle that we're replacing? How many miles? Why are we replacing it? Can it be fixed? I mean, we just really need to, line by line, going over this budget.
And just very briefly, in light of the news about unregulated and potentially toxic chemical compounds in the Cape Fear River,
Yes.
how does that affect Southport? What does that do to your planning if you are elected?
Well, when I ran 2 years ago, it was for the health of our city, and one of it was for the health of our environment. And I put in there clean water, clean air, and this was long before Gen X. And someone came up to me and says, "We already have clean water." I says, "Well, we have to be vigilant." So our campaign is very pro-environment, clean water, clean air, absolutely. And we have to measure for these toxins.
Joe Pat Hatem, thank you so much for joining us today.
It was my pleasure to be with you. Thank you.